Welcome to another episode of Bum with a Wrench. I'm your host Daniel, and today we're sitting in my office at this little fold-out table with the wiring harness. Now I already started mapping this thing, taking it apart, but I wanted to kind of stop for a second and bring you guys in, because this type of work can really make a build look that much more custom. There's nothing wrong with this harness. You could go ahead and connect it up to the motor and everything would be fine. But if you're going for that really clean custom look and you want to disassemble your harness and run it all special and everything like that, this is the part that's going to take a lot of effort, and really, it's something you really want to slow down on. That's why I brought it in my office. I got a chair sitting here. I'm just taking my time. So the first thing that I did was I went ahead and I started removing as much of the wiring coverings as possible. You'll notice there's some coverings still on here. Reason being is because they're not the peel and open and take off kind. There's to slip the circuit through the through the covering kind. So I'm not going to be able to remove those until after I disassemble the main connectors and open the harness up and start pulling all the circuits out individually. So those are still on there, but I removed all of what I could remove. I've left the electrical tape, which if you're ever building a wiring harness, don't use electrical tape. It leaves a gooey mess. I don't know if you guys can see that, but you probably know what I'm talking about. You've probably worked with it before. First time you go to, work on the harness after it's been sitting in a car, in the hot summer day, you're pulling that electrical tape off and it's just this gooey, nasty mess. Don't use that stuff. Use this. It's just cloth tape. Got it off of Amazon, real simple. This doesn't leave that gooey mess behind. And it's soft, So, anyways, use that stuff. But you can see I've left a lot of that on here. Reason being is because I want to disassemble it slowly. One, I need to know the legs that come off. So this is one leg that came off and it goes down. This one is marked driver's side. So this goes down the driver's side of between the cylinder head and the intake manifold. That's where all your injectors are going to plug in. Now they didn't have the injectors marked because honestly, if you'd have just laid it down on that in that valley right there, each one of these injector plugs would just point to the injector that they go to. They didn't mark any of that. So I got to go through and make sure I mark that because I'm going to pull each one of these out individually. And the reason I want to mark that is because each one of the wires are a little bit different. Different color coded. They go into the main connectors here differently. So I want to make sure that I don't mix any of that stuff up. I want to know which side of the motor it goes on, and I want to know what cylinder it goes to. Now you don't need to mark, figure out, okay, well Chevy does their, cylinder count this way and blah, blah. You don't need to do all that. I just made with a simple label maker. This one says driver injector 3. So from the front of the engine to the back of the engine, if you're standing in front of the hood or in front of the car, on the driver's side, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how. You don't need to know, don't go all crazy and try and get all complicated and stuff with it. Keep it as simple as possible. And then making sure that you're going through and you're finding the connectors that are like that. The other one that was really kind of off here was the the coil packs. So this has the harness, the connector for the coil pack jumper, right? And again, that's on the driver's side. So this would be the driver's side coils. There's no tag on this telling you what it was. So I got to make my own tag. So driver's side coils. That way those wires, as they go into the computer, you're not, all over the place. And then you're just going to slowly, methodically take this thing apart, making sure that you're mapping everything. Get a piece of paper out, draw the connector. Doesn't matter how they wanted to number it, just number it the way you want to number it. I drew a picture of the connector, drew exactly what it looks like, and then I just threw numbers in there. I remember back in the day they used to actually number each pin. Maybe they still do. I don't know. But instead of going off of their numbers, whatever they are, I just did my own. Now there's two connectors that go into the computer. One of them has a gray cap, the other one has a black cap. So I just wrote black connector, and then I numbered it. And then after I numbered it, I went through and double checked it. Then I went through and triple checked it. And I went through and counted it again, After I was done, and I labeled what color each wire was that went to that number pin, I went ahead and made a little tag and put that tag on there. So I know this has a BK54. So that's the black connector, pin 54 on that connector. And I can come over here and I can say, oh, okay, pin 54 is right there, So I know exactly where that goes. The other thing to keep close watch on, these are called twisted pairs. They're twisted for a reason. You can untwist them if you're working with the harness, but when they go back together, make sure they are twisted. They're twisted for a reason. Don't just untwist them and, like, oh, that's dumb. These don't need, yeah, they do need to be twisted. It's a way to keep RFI out. RFI is a big killer when it comes to circuits and interference. So make sure you keep a close watch on that. Don't mix up your twisted pairs. So then what I did was I just went ahead, I went on YouTube. I found a guy that had already taken apart one of these connectors and then said, oh, okay, that's how you take it apart. And then I went ahead and took it apart very, very carefully, so that these things are very fragile. You want to take it apart very carefully so you don't break anything. The other thing you want to be very careful with is handling these pins. Another real big problem in modern cars is pin fit and drag. Meaning this is the female side of the pin. The male side of the pin, it has to actually, go in there correctly. And then there's a little part of the female pin that has a little nub sticking down that it makes a solid connection on. It pinches. So, and that's the drag. So when that pin goes in, you want to make sure that it's got a lot of, not a lot, but it's got some drag on it, so you know it's getting a good connection. If you were to stick a D-pin tool or something in here and miss and accidentally hit the pin and bend that little spring in there that creates that drag, what you'll end up with is you'll end up with two pins that are just loose. And so every time the car hits a bump or something, then it's actually connecting and disconnecting, connecting and disconnecting. You're going to have a heck of a time trying to find that. So try not to mess with the pins. Just go through and, like the guy on YouTube showed me, how to depin the harness. Make sure you pay attention to that. Now, when you're going through this, you don't have to depin both sides of the connector. This is the OBD2 port. I might have to depin something in here or something in here, but depin as little as possible. The main connectors are going to be your main point of depinning. And so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through, and as I start taking this apart and I start pulling the circuits out and going to whatever connector they're on the other side, I don't need to depin that connector. I just need to depin this side. Then I have the boot that came with the harness. This boot was just zip tied to the side of the harness, like that. There's no way you're getting this connector through that boot. Ain't gonna happen. So really the only way to get this boot on the car without cutting it, because you could cut it, but then what's the point in the boot? You could super glue it back together and play that game. Ain't doing that. You need to depin the harness anyways, so you can stick the boot in. So the way this is going to happen is after I get done depinning and I map everything. When I say everything, everything, this connector is going to get mapped. I know exactly where all the pins, what colors they are, where they go, everything. Then I'm going to do the same to this connector. And then when I start pulling the circuits out, right? So right now, so I've got this connector completely disconnected. So I'm gonna take a little bit of my tape. This is just gonna help me to stay organized. I'm going to tape, just put a little roll of tape around these. I know that's my black connector. It just helps you to stay organized. The more organized you can be in this process, the better off you're going to be. So that one's done. Now I'll depin this one. After this one's depinned, now I'll start coming through and just taking off all of my electrical tape and starting to open this harness up and pull out each one of these circuits out individually. I don't care where the legs are, right? Legs meaning, you know, these are 2 legs. This is another leg here. As you move down the harness, you get into another leg. Don't care where those legs are. That's what I'm changing anyways. So to me, that doesn't matter. So I'm going to start pulling each circuit out. As I pull each circuit out, like I get to these twisted pairs right here, just because they're easy, right? They're going to go to a connector somewhere in here. When I get to that side of the connector, I'm going to draw that connector and then tell myself where each one of those pins go in that connector. Just as an added backup. I'm probably never going to depin the other side of the connector, right? But in case I do need to, or in case something happens, or in case I want as much information on this harness as I can possibly gather. A lot of it's going to be, you know, way more than I need, and that is totally fine. But in the case that something does need to happen, and I do need to go, I can already see that twisted pair. It's part of the OBD2 port. In case I do need to take something apart, I already have it all mapped. It's all in my notes. Once you have this fully completed with all of the connectors in here, then you can feel free to take this thing apart. Granted that you've gone through and you've labeled each one of those connectors. If there is a connector in this harness that does not have a label on it, you need to put a label on it. Every single connector needs to have a label. Every one. Now, you know, OBD2, I'll still put a label on it. It'll say OBD2 port. I'm pretty sure this little red light here on the side is your check engine light. So I'm just going to put a tag on that that says check engine. Every single one of these needs to have a label on it. Now, a lot of this stuff was labeled from the harness manufacturer. This says ETC pedal. So this is your electronic throttle pedal, right? This one here already has a label on it. It says crank sensor. I know that's the crank sensor. This one's got a label that says battery starter. So this is basically your main power from to this harness, and that's generally how all of these modern cars work. You have your main battery power going straight to the starter, as it should, and then generally there's another wire branched off somewhere on either at the starter or back at the battery or in between somewhere, and that is your main power for the rest of the car. That's what powers that. That's your main power. So that's what that is. I'm just probably gonna, I don't know. I'm not gonna speculate on where I'm gonna plug that in yet. It probably won't be on the starter. I'll probably have a distribution block somewhere that I'll tap into, and that's where that'll go. That's what I'm doing right now. This is gonna take me a couple days. The reason I started on this now is because I'm waiting for parts to come in. All those steering parts and that kind of stuff are coming in. They should be in a day or two. And I want to work on those steering parts. Fuel lines, the thing that I have actually been procrastinating on. The reason I'm procrastinating on that is because I ordered one of those straightener tools. I'll tell you that 3/8 stainless steel line is super stout. It is hard to bend straight, and I want to get nice straight sticks out of it. So I bought a straightener. You just mount it in your vise. Twist the little wheels so it bends the thing straight, and then you just start running it through the straightener and the tube comes out the other side straight. So I'm waiting for that to come in. I can make the upper and lower radiator hoses. Like I said, we already fit them once. I'm going to fit them again, make sure they still fit after everything is locked down and in its space, and then I can go ahead and make those lines again. Not super in a hurry to get that done. It's not high on the list. It's something that I can do like this when I'm waiting for something to happen. I don't need to get coolant in the car right away. It's not going to start for a little bit, but I do want to get this done. Reason I want to get this done is because I want to pull all these injector lines out. I want to connect them to the injector, put the new injectors on the manifold, connect all of these off the car, connect all of my injector terminals to each one of the injectors off the car again, and then run all of my wire covers, and then make everything all real nice, know exactly what wires are coming underneath the manifold right there and how they're going to look, and then take it over to the car and actually set it down on the car. The reason I'm going to do it that way is because if you just try and pull them through, you don't know how tight or how pinched any of those circuits are going to get. But if I can lift it up and put it down on the manifold, I can make sure that everything has the correct amount of space and that I'm not pinching a wire, I'm not stressing a wire. Some of these wires, they're pretty thin. They don't really like to be pulled on. You can break one of these circuits pretty simple. So I want to make sure that all that's done, and then once all the injector wires are done, I know where all the wires that are going underneath the manifold is done, I can go ahead now and lock that thing down. I can torque it down, put the top on it, be done with the intake manifold. It's going to make the motor look that much more finished, and we got a big portion of the harness done. Now there's a lot to this harness. There's a lot of pieces that need to go in, but that is a big one for me, getting those injector circuits ran. So one of the reasons why I'm sitting here today, the other reason is I caught another cold from my son, and a little bit head fogged, which is probably not the best state to be in when you're taking apart a wiring harness, but hey, I've done this lots of times, so that part doesn't really bother me. It's a way to relax. I can sit there and turn a show on the TV and just sit here and disassemble this thing. So that's where we're at. I wanted to bring you guys in, kind of show you how to do this. I'm not going to sit here and film me doing all of this. That's the basics on how to get this done. If you follow those steps, basically mapping, labeling, and methodically going through and taking each thing apart, writing as many notes as possible, you'll get through the disassembly very simply. More importantly, you'll get through the assembly part very, very easily. Now, some of these circuits are probably going to have to grow or shrink. We can get into that later. When that does happen, I'll bring you guys back in and show you how, what's the proper ways of either expanding a circuit or shrinking a circuit. So, but for now, that's where we're at. Next time I come back, we'll be back out there on the car. So it'll probably be in a day or so. This video might not come out for a little bit, but hey, this is slow going. That's the way it goes building this type of car, especially when you're one guy. So, all right, guys, give me a little bit, and then we'll be back out on the car. All right, guys, we're back. What's it, 2 days and a lot of mind-numbing hours later, this is what you end up with. The whole harness has been mapped and documented and notes taken, circuits tagged, you name it. I've gone to every extent to make sure that I know what each one of these circuits does. Well, not necessarily know what each circuit does. However, I know where each circuit goes. That's the most important. Knowing what it does too, it does help. I mean, for diagnostic purposes, but we'll get to that later. For now, I know where every circuit goes. And so what I did was, like I showed you in the last bit there, I started mapping everything. Basically, took the main computer connectors and broke them down into numbers and circuits, and just started disassembling that. Once I got those disassembled, then I went ahead and just drew each one of these connectors, which is simple. You just put it down on a piece of paper and trace it out. Boom, there's your drawing. Then you just mark how many circuits are in there. Now you take and you just use a voltmeter and find each one of these pins in here. And then you can say, oh, okay, well, pin number 3 in this connector goes to pin number 49 on the black connector. Now you know exactly where it goes. Okay? That simple. Do that part. The other thing you're going to find when you start to disassemble these harnesses is splices. Splices are very important. It doesn't really matter too much where the splice is. However, you got to know what is spliced together, obviously. In the injector circuits, you'll notice that all the pink wires are all spliced together. So you'll look here and you see this one right here. This is a splice. So what I did was I wrote splice and then I gave it a number. So on my notes, you'll see S1. That's splice number 1. And you'll see all the circuits that go into splice 1. And then I gave it a north-south. So I know where it's pointing. North is pointing toward the engine. South is pointing toward the car, the inside of the car. So that way I know basically how to orientate the splices. Really, that's it. So document everything. In the end, this is what you're going to end up with. But the cool part is now this one's for the throttle body. I can take this, plug it into the throttle body, and then I can run this circuit anywhere I want, whatever routing I want. I'm not limited to whatever they wanted me to go to. Now I can do whatever I want with it. As long as you plug everything back in right, you're good to go. So that's the cool part about all this. I'm going to make this harness as hard to see as possible. I want to hide almost every single bit of it. On the lower sensors, such as the crank, cam, knock, coolant, all that kind of stuff, it's going to be a belt that runs around the engine. They'll all stay low, and then they'll come up at the back at the bell housing, and then meet back in with the harness and go through the firewall. Everything up top, such as the alternator, the air conditioner, the throttle body, and the injectors, are about it. Those will go down the valley of the engine underneath the manifold. So you will see a couple wires sticking out, which is normal. That's what you see on any engine. However, I don't want this thing to be a modern wiring mess. It's going to be very clean, very discreet as far as the wires go. The motor's going to turn out really well that way. I got in a package yesterday. I got the intake for the car, and so I wanted to start laying that out. And reason being is for the mass airflow sensor, right here, mass airflow sensor. That way I know where the circuit's going to go. That because I want to see how it fits and how it looks. So let's take a break from this. Let me bring you out to the car, and then I'll show you what other wiring that I found that's just created more of a mess. So give me a minute. All right, guys, back out here to the car. Like I said, I was starting to get the intake mocked up because I want to see how it's going to go. And in doing so, I had to remove the fender braces for the core support. And so I also wanted to take that carbon fiber cap off, because when you tapped on the cap, it made, it just made noise up against the core support and stuff. So I wanted to take some of that cloth tape and run some of that in here, kind of check things out while I was in here as well. And in doing so, discovered more wiring that I need to take care of. So let me get you in here and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So even though you have a really beautiful car like this, you're still going to have stuff like this, where it's just a mess in the wiring department. You got a connector there that's not plugged into anything. You got some kind of fan connector down there. I know it's kind of hard to see. I'm just going to start telling you what I see. There's some kind of fan connector down there that's not going to anything. There's a lot of electrical tape. You know my feeling on electrical tape. Electrical tape, people, that is not a way to do a harness. You'll see there on the pressure for the air conditioner, they just wrapped some gooey mastic around it and called it good. Buy the connector. Connector is not very expensive. It's cheap. Why not do the connector? And then the same thing over here. We got some weird fan connector that's going nowhere. There's another right there. There's another light. I think that's for turn signals, I think. And they put some modern turn signal in the car. I don't know. Maybe it's an LED light or something. I don't know. There's more garbage over here, jumbleness of, let me see if I can get you over there. There you are. Jumbled mess of grounds. I don't know. And then you got stuff going up there to the heater control valve. So now I have most of the wiring already removed. You can see the connectors are all unplugged and stuff. A lot of the wiring is tucked back up inside the fender right there. And then it comes down, goes through the fender right here, and then comes around the front. It's not hard. Not hard to get that wiring out of there. It's definitely not. It's just one more step I have to do. So it makes it kind of a pain just for that reason. You know, I mean, you want to continue on. Oh, let me show you the airbox. I didn't even get into, I got so wrapped up with the wiring that I forgot to show you the airbox. So I got it somewhat installed. It sits over here in the corner, and then the brace kind of goes across top of it. So you got to take the brace off when you do it. You can see here that tube, and this is set up, this is made for a stock GM intake. So when I put the tube that they sent up to it, there's no way. I can't get that to fit. It's too big. So I'm going to have to cut this down substantially right there to get this to actually fit inside there. You can see how much overlap that actually is. So no big deal. Be a little bit of a challenge for that. But, you know, I'll make it work. Looks like I got to cut some length off of it too. It's going a little bit long. I'll do this part first. And then if there's too much length, then I'll cut some length off of it. I don't need that because that goes into the I think the PCV. I don't know. It goes into something. But don't need it. So I need to get rid of that. But I think this thing's actually going to turn out pretty cool. Let me get the top. This is the top for it. So this thing's barely sitting in there, so I don't want to drop it. But it sits in there like this. You know, really clean, really nice. That's the reason why I bought it. I usually don't like stuff like this because it just always looks so cheap and plasticky. This is all really nice metal. It's got the little window on it so you can see the filter. Of course, the filter would sit in there. And then, of course, they did have the provision. You had to buy the one if you had the mass airflow, which I do. So you buy the one with the mass airflow adapter in there. I love how it attaches to the car. It uses all stock points. It's made by Rotofab. They did a fantastic job, honestly. I'm not going to fault them for this tube right here not fitting because I'm using a manifold that they didn't engineer it for. So I'm not going to get mad at them for that. You know, they can't make something for all applications. I would like to see Holley actually make something because, I mean, that is their manifold. But, I mean, it's an LS3 manifold, though. It can go on any car, anything. But being that this is such a popular build, it would be nice to have them actually make something to support their manifold on this car. So, let me put you down here for a second. So that's what I'm working on today. Now that I've got that wiring all opened up and torn apart, fantastic. I love that. Now I can start plugging the injectors in, see where I want all that stuff to go. As you can see with the manifold on here, really the one connector you're going to really see is this one here, and then maybe a couple of injectors, and that's about it. You'll maybe see a little bit from the alternator, but honestly, not much more than that. There's only one wire coming off the compressor. So, yeah, I think it's turning out pretty good. You know, the wiring part is a little discouraging. I do remember now, remembering back when we first started working on this car and I had the mechanic working for me, I told him, just take all the wiring out of it. I got to go through it all anyways. He did. He removed it all the way up to the headlights. But yeah, looking back on it now, I know why I told him that. It's a mess, but no worries. I'll take it apart, clean it up, remove all of the stuff that I don't need, because really all I need is headlights, turn signals, air conditioning, horns. That's it. That's all I need up here on this, on the basic harness and the heater control. That's really it. There's a lot of extra stuff in here that I'm not really sure what's going on. And then what I can do also is I can go ahead and integrate my cooling fan relays, and then maybe put those up front here where you're not going to see them, with a wire that goes down underneath the core support. I'm going to cut those cheap plastic connectors off, and I have some weather tight locking connectors. They're all black so that you won't see them. I'm going to extend those wires a little bit, drop them down underneath of the fan shroud here so you don't see them, and then use the connector down there. So really all you'll see is two wires just dip down below the radiator and then disappear. And they're all weather tight, so if you drive through the rain or something, it's not going to hurt it. That is the plan. I did modify this a bit because you know me, I can't leave well enough alone. They had me wanting to use some cheap hardware with nylon nuts to hold all of this stuff together. Of course, I drilled it out, put riv nuts in it, and then did some really nice stainless steel cap head screws. So, because you know me, can't just leave well enough alone. But that's how you make a really nice car. It's all the attention to the small little details. You know, I mean, nobody will ever pay attention to the fact that, you know, there's really nice button head, stainless steel button heads holding this thing together. But when you start to add up all of the little small details, that's how you get these just beautiful, clean cars. Stuff that you can see where you pop the hood and the whole, the experience as a whole is wowing. If you just start going cheap on stuff and you overlook the little things, like this stupid catch can right here, the thing works just fine, but it doesn't match the build, so this has to go. I haven't decided what I'm going to do to actually replace that yet. Maybe I'll sand it and polish it. It'll match the radiator. Don't know. Haven't got there yet. I'll get there though. So anyways, that's what I'm doing today, guys. I'm going to get going and pull this wiring out. I'll bring you guys back in when I have an update on something. So, you know, until then. All right, guys. All right, guys, I'm back. It has been, I don't know how many days. It's been a while, I can tell you that much. I kind of just stopped filming. And I'll explain why in a little bit here. But before I do that, before I get into any of that, I just wanted to give you a quick update on the car. It's coming along great. I haven't even been updating to TikTok or Instagram or anything. So I wanted to just kind of bring you in, show you what I got going on thus far, because I've done quite a bit actually. And it's not that I don't want to show you guys or bring you guys along on this journey, and I'll get into that here in a little bit. But let me bring you in and show you the car first. Let me get a light over here, because that camera doesn't like not having light. Okay. Okay. I'm not sure exactly what the last thing you saw on this car was, but got the power steering lines installed. They are in and everything's connected. I think I showed you guys this. I'm not sure. I don't know. Power steering lines are easy. But you know, when you're trying to make stuff look real good and, you know, be nice and pretty, it can be a little bit time consuming. You'll notice there's the connector's plugged in, because I've actually mocked up the harness, and I'll soon do the covering and the finishing. My goal is to get all of this done and through the firewall. But I also went ahead and did the steering shaft, the two-piece. You can see there, it turned out really good. I was a little nervous about it, but
it actually turned out really nice. So there's no binding. Basically what I did was I just put this Heim joint in place where the gearbox would be, and then just made another joint there, and then another joint there. And it turns real smooth, real nice. There's no binding, everything's great. So that's all done. Locked down, done, no worries on that. So you'll see, you see the harness. So I'm gonna put a little holder here that goes across the back of the bell housing. The harness will actually wrap up the back of the bell housing and go into the car back there at the firewall. So got all the connectors all plugged in. After I had disassembled the harness into each of its different components, I just plugged them in. Everything was kind of dangling down, and you just start pulling it up, making your little loops how you want them. I'll probably put like a little zip tie right here, although I don't like using zip ties, but right here I think it's fitting. So right there I'll have a little zip tie. After, of course, all the finished covering is done and all that kind of stuff. But same on this side. They have a lot less sensors on this side. You got crank, you got knock, and then I've got a coolant temp up there. In the front here, of course, you got cam, and you got a coolant temp up over there. Fans are still not wired. That's okay. So now that you've kind of seen the underside of the car, you'll notice the headers are out of it. I have actually been, sorry, you're looking at the ceiling. Been working on the headers. Just finished welding this one. Don't judge me on my welds. I'm not a professional welder. I just kind of have a basic knowledge of how to do it. So, you know, me and the TIG welder, we have a love-hate relationship. It loves to make boogers, and I hate making boogers. It doesn't look that bad, but it's definitely not, you know, super high-end, you know, welds. But that's okay. Everything doesn't have to be completely perfect. You do your best. You know, you can't be perfect at everything. They look okay. I'll get better. Really, what I'd like to do is just take like a night class or something for a month to really kind of refine, you know, how to set the welder up, and like when you have basic knowledge of how to do all that stuff, I'm sure if a real welder actually came in, he'd laugh and then change all the settings, and I'd be dropping dimes like nobody's business. But you know, you do what you know how to do, and that's what I do. So it didn't turn out horrible. Let me lower this thing down so I can show you the top side here. Basically what I'm waiting to do is finish weld the passenger side header. But I wanted to stop and kind of bring you guys in real quick and show you the car. I got all 4 wheels are on it now. I think I showed you guys the wheels on this thing. They turned out nice. The owner actually came in to take a look at it. He liked them. There was a specific wheel that he wanted. He wanted the Torque Thrust 2s with the gray centers, but I have one over there. I have a lot of the popular wheels. I just bought one of each. That way I can use them for mock-up when I'm building cars. You can say, you know, throw it up next to a car, see if you like it, see if you don't. So when he's like, oh, I really wanted these wheels on there, I just pulled one out, put it next to the car, and then showed him why I didn't use that wheel. You know, when you got colors that are real similar, real close, you've got a darker gray and then a lighter gray wheel. The 2 grays don't match each other. You need something to kind of offset it. And this car being polished and black and gray and black, the black just kind of went together. Plus it kind of looks like Knight Rider. Anyways, let me show you up underneath the hood here. Let me see if there's enough light. I think there might be for you guys to see what's going on. But you can see all the wires there in the back. Those are all the harnesses that have come up and met up there in the back. And I just kind of stuck them in place because this is everything that's actually going to go through the firewall. But everything up here is wired. So you can't see any of it. You see a little bit of the alternator connector down there. The main power wire, of course, I need to run that one still. This is a ground lug. I'm going to move it down on the alternator. You see it just right up here at the top is just not a good place for it. And then this is the positive lead. So the positive lead will kind of go down the side there and meet up with the harness. I'm going to move this down to one of these other bolts so it does the same thing. It wants a ground right off of the battery, so that's going to be fun. But you'll notice all the injectors are actually wired. Everything goes through the harness, or through the manifold. So in the end, you know, of course, it just take all those wires there in the back out of the picture, right? And all you see is motor. The electronic throttle, that's wired. Everything's wired. You see a little bit of wire there on the electronic throttle, but really that's it. And then the only other wire you really see is the mass airflow right here, but there's not even much of that, and it just dips right into the fender and then it disappears. So the cool part is you get to see, you know, the motor. And not have all the hoses and the wires and all that kind of stuff is just not there. My goal with this car is to just be really, really clean. No excessive amount of hoses and wires, and you know, I'm trying to keep that real classic car vibe, even though it's obvious a modern engine. I did get the air filter in place. There is a protective coating, that's why it's kind of like grayish, you know, it's all foggy looking. I just never peeled it off. I'll peel it off once the car is done, but for now it's, you know, it protects it, so I'll leave it there. That turned out really nice. I love this whole area. Of course, this didn't fit. I had to chop that down, so that's about as close as I can get this. I didn't want this to run into the fan. I wanted to leave a little bit of room there. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is actually doing a clamp that's welded, kind of like what you see on like a turbo car for, you know, for pressure. It's got a real nice clamp, kind of like a V-band clamp, really. I think that's what I'm going to do up here because there's really not there's not enough room for a you know, a boot like this. So, but I'm not worried about that. I just kind of want to get that kind of mocked up and in place. I need to either block this off or cut it off and weld it. I'll probably end up cutting it off and welding it. That's all aluminum, so my aluminum welding skills aren't that great, but hey, you know, it's time to practice. You'll notice I do have the booster back in. I wanted to make sure that fit, and it does. It doesn't look bad. I really hate the chrome. So that'll come back out and get painted. You know, all the brake lines on this thing are absolutely hideous. I cannot leave them. It's driving me absolutely insane. So all the brake lines on this car are going to get redone. So it'll push it out a little bit on, you know, being completely finished, but that's okay. This car is definitely worth it. You'll notice I got the carbon fiber closeouts all back in. Because I wanted to get as much stuff kind of on the car so that it didn't get lost. And let me put you down, I'll kind of explain to you what I'm talking about here. And also the reason why I have been slow to update, slow to record, and just have kind of been absent. You know, the welds don't look horrible. I definitely need more practice. So what's going on is we're selling the shop. Without getting too political, some states are just not very friendly to this type of work. They don't really like you. They don't like what you do. So that's okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to relocate the shop somewhere else, but don't know where. And we're not going to know where for a while probably, but that's okay. So my plan is I'm going to put all the cars into another storage facility. And then I'm going to take all the tools, all the equipment, and everything to a X garage, a secret location known only to me. Just a small garage, aka my house. And then I'm going to start filming and building the cars out of my house. And I thought, you know what, that'll be kind of cool because, you know, I noticed in the comment, a lot of people were saying, oh, I love the shop. I love your shop. I wish I had your shop. I love this shop. Do not get me wrong. I absolutely love this shop. I built this shop, the whole thing. When we first purchased this building, it was manufacturing. It was dirty and dungy. And I mean, I did everything. Painted everything, did the floors, did the hoist, did this whole shop, redid the kitchen even, everything. Every piece of this building's been touched and redone to be this just beautiful building to work out of. It's kind of like just a massive man cave, really, is what it is. And so I'm kind of sad. I'm really kind of been stressed out. Pretty sad to see it go, but you know, you can't let stuff like that in life get you down, because in life nothing ever stays the same. Everything's always going to change. You know, you have kids, they grow old, they graduate college and have kids of their own. You can't stop that. You know, even though you love the age that they're in, you'll love the next age that they're in. Same thing with work, same thing with life. And I've always been the type of person to, you know, not fight life. If life is going to drag you in a certain direction, then that's the direction you got to go in. You know, I grew up here. And so to feel like I'm being forced out is sad. You know? I mean, there's the one place in this country that feels like home is home, right? I mean, you can make a home anywhere you want. And there's a lot of really beautiful places throughout this country. I've been to most of them. I was a truck driver for quite a few years. And I've seen a lot of places, been a lot of places. The only state I haven't been to is Alaska, surprisingly. And I'd love to go to Alaska, and I will someday. But I've been to all the rest. And so there's a lot of really beautiful places. And I've lived in quite a few. But nowhere feels more like home than where you grew up. You know, and so it's kind of sad, but at the same time, you know, it's okay. Life goes on and you move and you grow and you adjust. And so that's pretty much what's happening here. So it's going to be a little bit slow making some of these videos. It's going to be slow working on the cars too. Right now, basically, I'm thrashing as fast as I can to get as much done while I have a hoist. So getting the big stuff done, like getting the exhaust in it, getting the fuel lines in it that I've been procrastinating on so much, trying to get the engine harness underneath done, because while I can stand there and do it from underneath the car, it's really easy. But if I'm laying on my back trying to, you know, make harnesses and stuff, it's going to be a lot harder. But I don't have a lot of time before, you know, I have to be completely out of this building. So I'm trying to get as much done on this as possible, at least all of the hard things, which I'm not far off on. I just need to finish this exhaust, which is a little bit time consuming because you got to be really careful. Otherwise you end up with weird shaped exhaust and you don't want that. Fuel line, same thing. It's a little time consuming, but I think by the end of next week, I should have everything hard to do on this car done. And at that point, I'm going to close the hood. I'm going to load the trunk with all of its bits and parts. And then I got to start putting some of these cars back together. The 66 7-liter, the red car, I need to quickly assemble that car. It's not going to be 100% complete in the way that I want it to be, but it'll be assembled enough to where it'll run, drive, and have air conditioning. And then later I'll circle back and have to take it back apart and build it the correct way. The hard one, the really hard one, is the 57 Chevy. That one, I want to get the body back on the frame, get the frame rollable, set the motor and trans in the frame, and then load the body up with all of its parts. I have all the chrome for that car. I have all of the trim for that car. I have new interior for that car. I have tons of parts for that car. And so I need to basically just put all the parts in the car, you know, without breaking things like the windshield and the side glass and that kind of stuff, packing it very nicely. And then putting it away into storage. And so what's going to happen is, as I finish one of these, so obviously the Camaro is going to be the first one to go to my home. As I finish one, then I'll finish the car and then take it over to the storage unit, grab the next one, which will be the El Camino. And then I'll have that El Camino for quite a while. And then on and off, I'm going to dip back and forth to my 65 hardtop, which I have decided to go ahead and sell. So I am going to sell that car. With what drivetrain, I don't know. I think I'm going to be getting a 5-liter out of a, like the 90s 5-liter out of a Mustang. And so that car actually might get a fuel-injected 5-liter, which I think would be really cool for that car. It's kind of what I should have built for it in the first place. So there's going to be a little bit of that back and forth on my 65 hardtop too, because I do want to get that sold. The 65 convertible, I'm just going to push that one off to the side right now because I just don't have the time or the place right now to kind of, that's a lot of work. The 65 hardtop is going to be a lot of work. But the 65 convertible is going to be even more work. So that's kind of the plan. That's where we're at. And that's kind of why I've been a little bit silent, you know, as far as updating social media, putting out new videos, that kind of stuff. Because there's a lot just going on right now. But this is not the last. This is not the last you're going to see of me. This is not the last you're going to see of this car. I still have plans to take this car to the Power Tour this year. I hope I can make it there. The car's, you know, a couple months, it should be done. So it is going to be a little bit harder to do at my house, but that's okay. I've got a 3-car garage. I kicked my wife out of the garage and told her, sorry, you know, I need the garage. She's awesome. So she told me, you know, whatever you need, you know, if you need the garage, then take the garage. So that part's really nice. I love her for that. That she really tries to help me to be more comfortable in what's going on in life. I need to do the same to her. Actually, I'm not a very good husband. I try hard, but so that's what's going on. This is not the last you're going to see of me or the cars. It's just going to be a little bit slow, probably for the next couple months. I will try and get as many videos out as I can as I work on the cars. But I'm really thrashing as fast as I can to get a lot of this stuff done. So, but I'll do what I can to show you guys the path along the way. This is an 8,000 square foot building that I have to figure out how to get a lot of this stuff into my garage, and the rest is going to go into storage. So yeah, a little bit stressed out, a little bit stressed out. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and end this episode here. You know, wiring is super hard to do, super important. If you are going to tackle a job like this, take your time, really take your time. Maybe have a friend or get to know someone that you can ask questions, rely on, and that kind of stuff. And honestly, if any of you guys ever have any questions about, you know, hey, how do I do this? Or what do you think of that? Feel free to send me an email or, you know, question in the comments or anything like that. And I'll be more than happy to walk you through the process as much as I possibly can. So, but honestly, it just comes down to tons of notes, moving very slow, documenting everything so that when it goes back together, it goes back together in the right place. But if you ever have any questions, you know, a bum's always here for you. So, but as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already done so, please like and subscribe. It really helps me out. I'm trying to, you know, obviously trying to grow the channel. I'm not losing the shop because I'm not, you know, selling cars or anything else like the Discovery Channel thing goes. No, it's just, you know, got to move to another place where we're going to be more accepted, put it that way. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't already done so, please like and subscribe. And as always, guys, until next time.